Hi everyone, welcome. Hi Bianca, welcome to this week's episode of Let's Talk About. This is episode number 10. So, very excited to be 10 weeks in and finally talking to Bianca, who we were going to talk to a few weeks ago, but Bianca was moving town from Sydney back to the Gold Coast. So we postponed for a little while you just got your feet on the ground. And as we start this week, I just want to do a little bit of an intro about Bianca. Bianca Maree's an accredited practicing dietitian, and she's been working in the health industry for 6 years as of November. So celebrating your 6-year anniversary very soon. So, Bianca initially started out wanting to become a dietitian after suffering an eating disorder in the late teens and in her early 20s. And I really understand and really feel for you with that. Like it's a horrible thing to go through in those teen years. And Bianca Maree really wanted to inspire women and help them heal their relationship with food. So, life's got its curveballs, absolutely, or as you call them, Bianca, universal blessings. So Bianca Maree contracted meningococcal meningitis in her first year of uni, and because of all the antibiotics and all the medication and everything that she had to take to try and heal the infection, it really damaged her digestive system. And from that, you noticed that you were suffering from a lot of food intolerances, which is how you started delving into gut health and how to heal your gut health. So Bianca Maree worked in a private practice for a number of years, and then decided to go out on her own, which is a scary little step to take, isn't it? Like stepping into the unknown. Where Bianca now specializes in gut health and food intolerance management in your Be-Free Living dietetics. So, more recently this year, Bianca Maree launched a preventative holistic health program called Balance Ballas. And you're an accredited practicing dietitian that's been working in the industry and now doing it as a part of that online program. Mm-hmm. So, Bianca Maree, you started out with wanting to become a dietitian after suffering from your eating disorders, and with starting Balance Ballas, it's a big journey from being at uni to starting your own business and having your own clinic and doing your own diet. So I've given a bit of a rundown of what I know. Can you just provide a little bit more on what that journey was like for you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on. This is really exciting as gut health is my jam. Mm-hmm. And so any excuse to talk about it, I absolutely will go for that opportunity. So as obviously you mentioned, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I had an eating disorder. Essentially how I was put onto the pathway or the trajectory of becoming a dietitian, it was actually encouraged to me by my psychologist that I was seeing at the time. And so forever grateful for him for putting me on this path, because I found my passion and my purpose in this lifetime. It's inspiring and helping women to lead the happiest and healthiest lives that they possibly can. So I started out, obviously in university, really motivated because I had the personal experience and the passion to really want to make a difference in this world. And just like you mentioned, universal blessings, as I call them, within my first 6 months, actually, it was in exam shutdown, I got meningococcal meningitis, and I was in hospital for like nearly a month. And then I was in rehab and all sorts of things afterwards, because it's quite a debilitating condition. I was very lucky. Some people lose limbs, other people get really septic and have septicemia, and just the magnitude of how much pressure was, compressing my brain. There was also, I guess, a chance there that they thought that I was going to be severely mentally disabled as well. So I got away scot-free, so to speak, but obviously been given a second chance. Nothing, doesn't happen for a reason, as we know. And obviously, I was always destined to be in this world as a gut health dietitian. So 6 months into my recovery, basically, that's when all the food intolerances started. So I didn't really go into my first year of practicing as a dietitian into the gut health world. I think any new grad can agree with what I'm about to say. You just take the first job that comes to you and you just hold on to it, because getting a job as a new grad dietitian is really hard. I do believe now they're making it harder for dietitians, simply just because there's just not the opportunity to work in hospitals or in private practice settings or community outpatient settings. So I was really lucky. I scored a job a couple of weeks after I graduated, and I pretty much worked there for 3 years. So I loved my job. Don't get me wrong. I was so passionate about helping people. I was actually working at an obesity and overweight clinic, where whether they're one side of the scale or the other, it's still a very unhealthy relationship with food. And so I was living my dream, living my jam, but I guess concurrent to all of this, I was still struggling with my own health. And I guess wanting to pursue that a little bit more and actually get to the bottom of what was going on for me was where I decided to open up my own practice as well, which is Be Free Living. I was doing the two, so I was working full-time and I was also working for myself on the side, because I was seeing more of my own caseload, working in an area that I was really passionate about. But I guess push comes to shove, and you realize that you can only handle so much. So that's when I decided to take the leap of faith. The other reason why I decided to do it was I was working in a treatment environment, so people had already got chronic disease. They were quite sick, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and I wanted to work in the preventative space now. I wanted to be in a space where let's not treat disease, let's actually prevent disease. And so, I did have obviously that opportunity in where I was working, but I guess when you are your own boss and you can really govern exactly what happens in that space, it was, I guess, the push came to shove for me. I knew that it was my calling to sort of just take it by both hands and go for it. So yes, that was my journey over the last sort of 4 years, and now 2 years in, almost 2 years next month, and I would have been working for myself.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. It's I think that step of going into working for yourself is a scary one, but then staying in it over the long haul is one of the really difficult things as well. It's not something that everyone can do, and it can be pretty scary and it can be pretty lonely. And I know with the job that you do and the community that you create around you, especially within Balanced Ballas and that that really must help a lot with that feeling of so many entrepreneurs and people who are self-employed feel so isolated. Yeah. And so to create a community of preventative wellness is fantastic, I think, because it's really just so important. I think it's really, really important, especially for people who work on their own, because it can get so out of control so quickly and easily, and you don't have people watching and holding you accountable for your behavior when you're there by yourself in front of the computer for 16 hours a day and not eating and doing all those crazy things that sometimes I've never done that. Okay, maybe I have. Yeah, I'm connecting really deeply with that. Yeah. So just so our listeners get a bit of an idea, can you just explain a little bit more about Be Free Living and what you do there and how you do it and who you deal with, and Balanced Ballas and what that is and how that is different and separate? And if you could just provide a little bit of info about those two.
Definitely. So Be Free Living Dietetics is my personal practice. So I do see specifically people who suffer from food intolerances. So irritable bowel syndrome is one of the major ones that I see a lot of people for. So I assist them with working out which foods they can and they can't eat, whether that's, the low FODMAP diet, or if they suffer from other food intolerances like the elimination diet, so if they've got food chemical sensitivity and those kinds of things. I also see people who have celiac disease, so newly diagnosed celiacs, if they've got irritable bowel disease like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. So that tends to be more specifically my Be Free Living practice. I still do see people who need assistance with weight management, perhaps who are looking for a bit more one-on-one support. I also work with an amazing company who I do their medical-based meal plans, so they're called HIT, so I'm their contracted dietitian. So that's essentially Be Free Living. Whereas Balanced Fellas is more for the online space. So the concept behind Balanced Fellas was to create resources that are accessible to anyone, anywhere, anytime, no matter where they are in the world. So it was really designed with the idea in mind that it's not difficult to take care of yourself. It's actually quite easy and simple, just by employing simple practices every single day. We designed it for women, by women, because obviously, men and women, they're obviously not worlds apart removed, but we also have very different things that we do struggle with and need support with. And I think one thing that a lot of people get out of Balanced Fellas is the self-love. Women especially, we really struggle with that. Coming from a background with an eating disorder, I know what it's like to hate where you live. I love myself now, but it's taken me a long time to get to that point. And so essentially it was created for that reason. So it's a team of health professionals that came together to create the resources. So we have personal trainers. I'm the accredited dietitian that works in there. We're currently scouting for a yogi so that we can have a yogi join the team, but we've got Reiki healers, herbalists, skin specialists as well. And essentially we just came together to create resources that we think women would really benefit from. And then depending on who you are, why you're joining our tribe of women, there is something in there to suit you. So we look to tailor the program to suit you, to meet you where you're at, and help you with your individual goals as well.
That's awesome. And, it really must be so fun to work with a team of health coaches. You're having so many people around you who are like-minded and on the same path as you, and really working in that real cooperative space towards that preventative, health and wellness area. I've met a few of your team at Balanced Bellas, and there's some amazing people in there. I happen to know a few yogis. I'll ping you some names. I'll send you some details for that. See if that someone that I know can fit into that space. That'd be really cool.
Fantastic.
And so I guess one of the things that I would love to know, because I know that you've been on a pretty intense health journey yourself, and you look very healthy and well now, and which is it's fantastic, it's great, but I think sometimes people don't understand, or it can get a little bit caught in the fact that it really is a journey. It doesn't really ever end. So can you share, what's your biggest challenge that you have right now in your health?
Right now. So as you mentioned earlier, we had to postpone our podcast for a little bit. So I moved to Sydney earlier this year, thinking that it was going to be the answer to a lot of my issues. I was feeling stuck in a rut, in terms of my lifestyle. So I moved there, but quite quickly, it's again, universal blessing. It's not until you're taken out of an environment and you realize how amazing that you truthfully have it where you are. Do you obviously appreciate everything that you had back at home? And so I basically just was really stressed. I was suffering from so much stress. My mental health reared its ugly head again, which unfortunately, fortunately hadn't been the case for a number of years. I haven't really struggled with my mental health since I recovered from my anxiety. My eating disorder several years ago. I'm fine now, but the repercussions of me being under so much stress, I'm feeling a bit fatigued still. I'm trying to really get my adrenals back to where they were. I was living off coffee again, which is something that I worked so hard to get out of that habit as well. And so I guess it just comes back to balance as well. Something, I wasn't living my mission when I was in Sydney. I wasn't living my everyday purpose. I was still taking care of myself in terms of food because I'm quite attuned to what I can and I can't eat. But I wasn't exercising. I was basically just not socializing, not doing any of the things that I, would normally do in my lifestyle, which is so important to health. It's just not how much you eat and how much you move. It's the whole picture. Yeah. And I forgot about it. Really, I honestly, like hand on my heart, can honestly say that I forgot some of those really important things. And so right now I'm definitely feeling worlds improved from what I was, but there's still obviously the repercussions of the amount of stress that I was under. But it's definitely all coming back together now that I'm in my environment.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, it's tough when you have those times that stress. I know this from personal experience as well. You can be in this world of stress and be a little bit unaware of actually how bad it really is, and sometimes something will happen and you'll just go, oh wow, how did I get back here? What happened? And then it's a matter of pulling yourself out. And I think some of the skills and things that you've learnt along the way may have made it a bit easier for you to pull yourself back out of it again, which is really important, because it can be quite a dark hole to go into and can be quite difficult to get out of sometimes. So that's where having beautiful supportive friends and other health coaches and people to talk to really support you in
that's it. That's it. What might have taken 12 months to recognize last time took only a couple of maybe 2 months at most to realize that I was digging a really bad hole and I needed to get back out of it again. So onwards and upwards from here.
That's good. That's awesome. And with your health journey, like you've done a few juice cleanses. And that's one of the first ways that we sort of connected was you did one of my juice cleanses and we started talking, and we've sort of grown our relationship over time through a joint understanding of the benefits of what that can do. Just can you explain why you started juice cleansing? Like, where did you learn about it? What made you actually start on that journey?
Yeah, definitely. So it probably came in around about 2016 when I really, my food intolerances and my gut health was at its lowest point. I was working that other job. I was working really long hours. I basically was living off coffee because, I was feeling so fatigued because in terms of nourishment, my body was just at its, absolute depleted levels.
Yeah.
And so I started to really look into, what can I do differently with my health to really try and get this on track. And so, look, I'm sure a lot of people have watched the Netflix documentaries. Honestly, if you haven't, go do it. They are amazing. They're a really easy way for people to understand what's going on, not only with our health, but with the food industry as well. And so I guess one thing led to another. I started doing some research. So there's an amazing book called Clean Gut by Alejandro Junga, which basically just had me sold on the whole concept. I was like, this makes sense to me. And Hungry for Change as well as another documentary that this makes sense to me. So I'm going to give it a go. Now, luck would so have it that one of my dear friends, Natalie, had recently just started a juice cleanse as well. And so I, trust everything that she said. The company was great. So that's how I actually connected with Michelle and tried the juice cleanse. And so for me, I started to feel the effects pretty much almost immediately. I was in a pretty poor state in terms of my health. So I decided to commit to doing a juice cleanse nearly monthly for about 6 months, just because I was obviously so unwell. I had obviously a lot of toxins from the inflammation that was happening on a daily basis because of the chronic inflammation in my gut. So I just decided to slowly, get myself into a healthier state. And simultaneously, I was actually transitioning to veganism as well, which was something that I don't actually think would have been possible without doing the juice cleanses, because I noticed with the more frequently I was doing them, the less reactive my digestion was becoming. So I was able to do that transition as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed over time of doing multiple cleanses, is that the way that I react to food is completely different. You know, there was a time where if I had a piece of bread, literally within a minute or two, I would be doubled over in pain and just, really, really horrible digestive response. Whereas now, I can have bits, I don't have much, but I can have bits of things like that would normally have made me feel so bad, and I don't have that same response. And it's such a relief, because you can be at events and things and you can look and go, oh geez, the only thing they've got is some things on little toasties, and I would have just gone hungry, because the thought of eating those little things on toasties would have been a horrible thing to go through. Whereas now it's like, okay, I can have a couple and it's not gonna be a big deal.
I totally get that.
Yeah. So it's quite amazing the change that it can have to your overall lifestyle, which is really cool. And that's sort of what I heard when you're talking about that change of, you go from feeling so ill and reacting so badly to so much to it gets less and less and less over time.
That's it.
Yeah, which is really cool. So you were doing monthly cleanses. I know we talked that while you were down in Sydney, you had a bit of a hard time cleansing. But if you had ideal world, could cleanse as often as you wanted now, how often would that be? And how often would you sort of recommend to other people as being a good cleansing sort of routine to do?
Yeah, definitely. So I think twice a year is a good amount to do a cleanse. It really just depends on, I guess, your tolerance as well. So what I mean by that is, I found 2 days for me is sort of a good amount of cleansing days. I'm a foodie. I love food. And so 2 days is kind of my limit. But, some people can really, tolerate the 3 or 4 day cleanses. It really just depends on your preference. But look, if you're following a healthy lifestyle most of the time, that sort of 80-20 or 90-10%, then really, if you're not drinking a lot of alcohol, you don't smoke cigarettes, you don't drink excessive amounts of coffee, which I definitely need to do another cleanse soon. You should be fine if you're nourishing your body the right way. But I definitely think twice a year is a good amount of time, specifically after Christmas. I think for a lot of people is a great time to get your cleansing done, because we all go off the rails a little bit at that time of year, but that's just life. And then, maybe another time. But again, it just depends on why you're doing them. Some people might benefit from doing them quarterly if they might not have as healthy a lifestyle, if they like to drink alcohol, or, if there's someone who loves their sweets and treat foods and all of those kinds of things. So,
yeah. Cool. Totally agree. Yeah. I used to do a lot more often when I was, I come from a very, very unhealthy background. I was a heavy smoker and drinker, and so my internal toxin levels were pretty bad, and so I did lots and did some really big cleanses as well, really deep cleanses that were really focused on getting heavy metal toxicity out. And whereas now I feel really good, I eat really well, so and I don't cleanse as often. It's just sort of, I feel my body, so I cleanse when I feel it.
That's it. You just get to know when it's okay, I think it's time to start doing a cleanse again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if someone came to you and was talking about or asking you about, cleansing, because there's a lot of conflicting evidence out there in the media. There's blog posts that really bag it as a fad. There's Yeah, and I know I experienced this when I first started researching juice cleansers. I would read one post that would say, it's ridiculous, it's dangerous, it's a fad, it's this, it's that. And then I'd read the next one and it'd be like, oh, my life has completely changed. I'd watch those documentaries. I watched the Joe Cross one, Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. I watched The Hungry for Change. And so I did a lot of research before I decided to dive in. Not everyone really has that time or inclination. So if someone came to you with that confusion of, I don't know what's right or wrong, it seems to be so much white noise out there, what would you say?
So I guess I'd ask them firstly what their reason for cleansing is, because I think that that's something that really needs to be established from the word go, because obviously people cleanse for very different reasons. You and I just so would have it that our reasons for doing it were very similar. We had a lot of toxicity in our body, and that's obviously why we decided to cleanse. But also, I guess something I'd let them know is, if you are wanting to embark on something, make sure you do your research and ensure that you are doing it under a trained professional, whether that is a dietitian or potentially it is someone who is an experienced consultant as well. Of course, if someone goes out and does a cleanse willy-nilly, it might not have positive effects for that person, but that's just like anything. It's like starting a diet and having absolutely no idea what you're doing. It's going to cause potential side effects and symptoms. So I guess, I don't know, it might be a personal thing, but anything to do with your body, people should truthfully value. And it doesn't take that long to read a little bit into what you're doing in order to make a decision. So I would never say to someone, everyone has to do cleansing. It's a very personal decision, and some people might never decide to do it. And you know what? That's totally fine. But I would also, of course, never bag it, simply because I know how much it's helped me, how much it's helped all of my clients as well that I've recommended to do it, who have come from very similar backgrounds where they've just had very unhealthy lifestyles for a very long period of time, and they're needing something that's just going to help them kickstart their health journey and obviously then maintain with the healthy habits over time. It's like with the weight loss and weight maintenance analogy, it's not just the juice cleanse, it's the lifestyle that goes alongside it as well. So someone can't do a cleanse and then go back to smoking cigarettes, drinking 10 litres of coffee a day. I'm sure you'd be really sick if you did, but, drinking excessive amounts of alcohol and expect that they're going to have the results of the juice cleanse. It's a lifestyle, it's not, a quick fix. And I think that's where juice cleansing might get the bad rap, is people think it's a quick fix to solve their problems. They just need to make sure that the lifestyle factors are coming alongside that as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, and I know, with running juice it, I do get occasionally, people are like, well, that's a ridiculous fad, and it's like, well, no, actually it's a lifestyle. And I would never ever advocate anything that is a quick fix. To me that just seems so ridiculous, because it just because as soon as you go back to what you were doing, you're going to go back to how you were feeling, and that just seems crazy. That's a very, very balanced answer, I think, in the way that because I don't think that cleansing is for everyone as well. I really think that you have to understand why you want to do it, what you want to get out of it. If it's something that you want to use, and this is something that I did with the first time I cleansed, was used it to suddenly realize the impact that coffee was having on me, to realize the impact of some of the behaviors and things that I was doing on a regular basis. I could feel it suddenly, and by being able to feel it, then I could stop it, whereas before I'd sort of been very numb to it and just kept going.
That's it. You just don't realize how much your lifestyle is affecting you. Obviously, both the positive way of that, a version of that, and a negative version of that as well. And like you said, you become very numb to things. You just have no idea the impact, because it's just what you know. And it's not until you actually know what it feels like to be truthfully healthy do you then realize, holy moly, I've felt like this for so long when I could have been feeling like this the whole time.
Yeah, it's amazing. So one of the things I'd like to understand, with your expertise in gut health, is about probiotics. What are your thoughts on it? How often do you recommend people have it? What types and styles and all that sort of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because that's something that I guess with the emergence of gut health comes sort of the first easily known solution. And I do put that in inverted commas because I guess the pharmaceutical industry can be very good at marketing these kinds of products. But look, the research and what the evidence suggests is that with probiotics, they don't actually colonize in your gut. So for people who are taking them to try and build up their flora, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And what I'm meaning when I say flora is your microbiome and all the different microbes that you have. Now, some people might find from taking a probiotic, if they have something that's deficit, that's causing them quite a lot of aggressive symptoms, so diarrhea or constipation or bloating or gas, flatulence, whatever it is that's obviously affecting you, and even indigestion as well. Taking a probiotic for them might actually really solve their issues, because while the probiotic or the strain is in their digestive system, it's performing the duties that it needs to, but then it's going to pass straight out. Now, people do find a lot of positive symptoms, a reduction of symptoms from taking the probiotics, and in that case, I totally advocate for them to take it, because it's going to improve their quality of life, which we've already identified is so important. And obviously it's giving their body exactly what it needs. Now, in some cases, people taking a probiotic can actually exacerbate the issues, because it can cause overgrowth of the microbial species that are there. So I guess the first thing that I usually say to someone is, what would your reasons be for taking this? And then helping them to identify what strain they might need, in order to assist them with reducing whatever their symptoms are. That's the reason that they're taking that particular product for. Now, it's really an individual thing. They need to monitor for improvements or not to work out whether or not that probiotic is really for them. But my first and foremost, line of treatment that I would always suggest someone is, what can we do to your diet first to try and see if that can help with your microbiome, and obviously improving that balance there. So I guess, again, it's an individual thing. Some people yes, some people no, and it's just exploring all options before we work out whether or not a probiotic is suitable for them.
Yeah, that's really good. I've been doing, I subscribe to New Scientist magazine, and so I get New Scientist reports daily with the latest research, and there's a lot of research out there right now around probiotics, prebiotics, microbiome, your gut brain axis, and I find it quite fascinating, and I read a lot about it. One of the things that I'm noticing in the research is that the scientists are finding it very hard to really understand the impact of pre and probiotics, because it's such an individual response.
Yeah.
So there's really, one report will come out and say probiotics doesn't do anything for anyone except in these cases. And there was one report I read where it was like they did some tests on some people who had just done a course of antibiotics. And they tested their microbiome before and after the antibiotics, and they had one group take probiotics and one group not. And they actually showed that sometimes the probiotic could delay the return of their normal gut biome, and other times it didn't. And so, it really is so individual. And the other thing they showed was even getting testing on your microbiome. There's some of the ways that they test at the moment isn't actually indicative of what's in the upper intestine microbiome. Because
it's only the lower bowel.
And so it's really, really difficult to say what one person will experience or not. And that's where I think having an understanding of what probiotics are, what they do, what prebiotics are, what they do, and then testing yourself for your own reaction and response. And just feeling your body, like if you've cleaned up your diet and you're feeling really well, or if you've cleaned up your diet and you're still getting bloating and horrible issues, and then maybe bringing some probiotics in.
And see if it works for you. And try different strains as well, because different ones until you actually do a test. And even still, when people do tests, there's about 1,000 species known to science, and then there's obviously a million more that are yet to be discovered.
Yeah.
And so you're very unique. You may have ones that are different and might be missing in comparison to other ones. And so I guess the standard one that they give everyone, which has Acidophilus, Bifidobacterium, a lot of adults don't actually have those strains in them, so those probiotics might actually work for them. But then in saying that, like you mentioned, they compete for colonization, and as a result, it could actually do you more harm than good. So
yeah, and it's funny because like I make the kombuchas and water keefers, and I drink a lot of probiotics myself, and for me, like, I don't have any adverse effects. My gut system's really good. I'm really, really good. It's really, it's amazing. And so I think, I have it because I don't drink soft drink. And to me, it's a healthy version of not drinking water or coffee or tea, or because I find myself personally, I get a bit sick of just drinking water, and I do a lot of things to water to make it better, add some lemon and mint and do all that stuff, but after a while it's like, I just want something else, and so I'll actually have a kombucha or a water key because I really enjoy them, and I really enjoy the feeling from them, like I don't get a yucky feeling afterwards or anything. So I sort of go with the theory of like, okay, I don't know if this is helping, I don't know if but it doesn't seem to be doing anything wrong, and it means I can have something really yummy and I'm good. So
that's it. It. Whatever works.
Yeah. So just one of the last things that I wanted to sort of touch base on before we wrap up our conversation is, I really love, and I've been doing this with everyone that I've been talking to, is giving the listeners something to really take away from this conversation. And for you, with your expertise in gut health, just if you could, and I know, every person is individual and every person is in a different stage of their journey. But if there were just 5 things that, just as an overall, if you do these things, you're generally going to start a journey towards a better gut health, what would those be?
Yeah, definitely. Great questions. Okay, so the first thing I would always suggest is where you can, reduce the amount of toxins that you have in your lifestyle. So coffee, there's nothing wrong with drinking coffee, maybe 1 or 2 cups a day. But, for those of you who are listening who might be drinking upwards of 3 or 4, you really want to start limiting that. Cigarettes, alcohol included, because it really does nothing but obviously harm your little gut bugs, which are, so important for our overall health. Same is for things like medications as well. Obviously there are reasons why people need to take medication, and I'm not suggesting that you should just cease it without speaking to your healthcare practitioner, but asking yourself whether or not something is essential, and if there's a way for you to get off it, like obviously maybe explore that pathway as well. So we know wholeheartedly the impact that these things have on our gut microbiome. So the more we can limit these, obviously the better. The other thing, or like the second thing, is making sure you're eating enough fiber. So we have fiber and protein digesting microbes in our gut, and really what we know from science, it's still an emerging area of research, but we know that the fiber digesting ones are the ones that produce the positive metabolites, which keep our gut health nice and healthy. Now, I guess this kind of leads into point 2 and 3. When we start to eat too much protein and too much saturated fat, it actually sees our gut microbiome shift to the more protein digesting microbes. Now, as a result of that, what they've now started to link is that there are a lot of papers that are coming out that suggest these higher protein consuming gut bugs, they are actually the ones that cause a lot of the inflammatory conditions as well. And they do see a link between these and like overall metabolic disease, like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, even like issues, I guess, with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis as well. So I guess sort of 2 parts to that increase your fiber. Make sure you're getting between 30 to 38 grams a day, which is, I guess, the Australian dietary recommendation, and also just minimizing how much protein you have. So you still need it, don't avoid it completely, but not be eating chicken 3 times a day or having heaps of processed meats that are really high in saturated fats. Really looking at a healthy fat, lower fat diet that's really high in fiber. The other thing too is maintaining a healthy body weight and a healthy lean muscle mass has been associated with a reduction in the gut microbes that produce BCAAs, which is actually very highly linked to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So we know wholeheartedly already that having a very active lifestyle is important for overall health. There's an extra reason to do it now. We know that it reduces your risk of developing insulin resistance as a result of your gut bugs. The other thing and the final thing I'm going to say about that is if you do need antibiotics, please make sure you ask your doctor to swab and colonize the area before they just give you any old antibiotic, because unfortunately, even though you might need them, they might give you the wrong antibiotics, and that sometimes can do more damage than good. So really making sure that you know what's happening down there or wherever your infection is, because it's going to have that total body impact, and understandably we don't want to be messing around with our gut bugs too much.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. I know, and I don't want to like start attacking doctors at all, but sometimes they go so fast and they process you through so quick, and they just don't take the time to really individualize and treatment. Yeah, and I really think, and I know I've done this myself personally, like when I've very rarely go to a doctor, but when I have had to, and I have had to have a course of antibiotics, I've really questioned them over, one, do I actually really need the antibiotics? Because sometimes it can be a little bit of a, one script fix all, and it doesn't fix. And and I have actually been at a doctor's where I've actually questioned and said, are you sure I need this? Is this actually really going to fix what's going on for me? And the doctor actually turned around and said, no, it won't. And I was like, well, why are you prescribing it? What are you doing? And it's like, oh, well, most people come in here and they want to walk out with something. And that was the answer to it. I was like, oh, wow, imagine if you just take them at their word.
Ask the right questions,
yeah, you trust them and you take them at their word. So it's and not all doctors are bad, and well, most doctors aren't. Like they're there to really help you, but understanding that they're under time pressure and they're not taking the time and they're not.
That's it.
And it's really your responsibility to look after you.
To ask questions and get the right treatment for you. It takes 1 second to say, do you mind if you just swab this, so that we know exactly what we're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I've really had it's been an awesome conversation. It's been really good to delve deeper into some of the things that you do and know. You're quite a wealth of knowledge, and it's awesome to get that time to really dig in and dig deep and also to understand you better. We don't get a chance to really have a good chat like this very often, ever.
Nowadays, no, they don't happen.
Yeah, no, never. So no, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. I'll let the listeners know now, just any of the links. So I'll put links to Balance Bella, I'll put links to Be Free Living, your Instagram and Facebook and stuff handles as well, in the show notes as well. So if anyone does want to connect with you, they can just can do that. And if anyone has any comments or questions or anything, post it. Even if you just want to like put a comment or question underneath the podcast on the blog. If it's a question for Bianca, I will actually forward that and get an answer directly from you, if that's all right.
Yeah, fantastic. Fire away. I love answering any questions. And thank you so much for having me. I really have enjoyed this. It's always good to talk at large about, what things people can really do to better their health every day, and, obviously not have to go and see a health professional one-on-one in order to get some answers to some questions. So thanks for your time.
No worries. Thank you very much. And we'll talk again soon, no doubt. Thanks, Bea. Bye.